Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 65 of the Nourish and Strengthen podcast. Today, we're talking about something that is so important in our fitness journeys, especially when we reach 40 and beyond and start having hormone downregulation due to perimenopause, and that is cortisol. We're talking all about cortisol levels and chronically high cortisol and what that means for your lifestyle stress and your weight loss challenges. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. So if you ever feel like, you lead a stressful life, but you feel like you can't really change that, the weight won't come off, especially maybe around the middle, maybe your face is puffy. We're talking about that today. Okay, I'm super excited for this topic and everything that I've prepared to share with you guys. So first, let's kind of go back to basics. What is cortisol? Cortisol is actually a steroid hormone. It's primarily made in your adrenal glands, and its main function is to regulate your stress response. But it also does so many other things in your body as well. It also regulates your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your metabolism. It helps regulate your circadian rhythm. So many important things. There's more as well. Cortisol levels should fluctuate throughout the day. Okay, a normal cortisol fluctuation should be like a bell curve. So it should be naturally higher in the morning to wake you up, get you going, get you out of bed, get you through the morning, and then naturally come down throughout the day to where you're getting towards bedtime. You have very low cortisol levels. Okay, so this is how it regulates our body's circadian rhythms, by getting you up in the morning and then helping you kind of relax before sleep. Okay, so if you think back to like caveman times, we needed high levels of cortisol to push us into action. It's related to that fight or flight response, right? We needed cortisol and adrenaline, things like that, to run from the bear, to gather food for our families, to have energy in maybe an otherwise time of famine when we didn't have the energy for food, right? So cortisol is really important. Low cortisol, which we're not going to talk quite as much about today, but low cortisol can be just as harmful as chronically high cortisol. We need healthy levels of cortisol in our bodies, okay? So the problem here is when we get stuck in this high cortisol, high energy, high fight or flight state, and our cortisol levels stay chronically elevated, okay? And this happens for a variety of reasons. The most common one that I see in most women is when you just have a stressful life. You've got kids with tons of stuff going on. You've got their health you're worried about. You've got your own health, your own stresses in your life, your own perceived stress. This is a big one, you guys, especially right now. If you watch the news a lot, if you consume a lot of negative social media, your perceived stress is going to be higher. Okay. One person might look at world events and things on the news and get really stressed about it. Okay. And someone else might look at that and be like, okay, that is what it is. And without really internalizing the stress of that. Okay. So perceived stress is a really big deal. And you can work on that. You can work on how you view things in your life to bring that perceived stress down. But if that is your life, a lot of perceived stress, a lot of craziness, maybe you've got some hardships going on right now, maybe a death in the family, maybe a divorce, maybe some hard family situations, your stress levels are going to be higher. Your cortisol levels are going to stay more elevated in order to kind of keep you going through those stressful situations. Okay. So let's talk about, I've got 4 ways here that chronically high cortisol can negatively impact your weight loss. So the first one is that it can affect your thyroid function. So chronically high cortisol can actually suppress proper thyroid function. The thyroid gland is going to produce your hormones, right? Your T3, T4, and that the T3 is the one that specifically regulates our metabolism. T4 has to be converted into T3 for our metabolism to be healthy, okay? So when cortisol levels are consistently elevated over time, this conversion of the thyroid hormone T4 to the active form T3 is going to be negatively affected, okay? And this can cause you to have symptoms that are like hypothyroidism, okay? That are like low energy, struggling to lose weight, brittle hair and nails. I said low energy, but really low energy. Like the people who are like, I can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm so tired. I can't get throughout the day without a nap, that kind of thing. Now, the problem here is that many women can see maybe sluggish thyroid on their labs or have these symptoms and think that they have hypothyroidism, right? Hypothyroidism is misdiagnosed all the time due to just lifestyle factors. Because you guys, if you can get to the root of the problem, and sometimes hypothyroidism is true hypothyroidism. I'm not saying everybody who thinks they have it doesn't, but it is overdiagnosed where a lot of people who are told they have hypothyroidism, if they just work on their lifestyle and some of these things we're going to talk about today, their thyroid can work properly without medication. Okay. Again, not everybody, just saying that chronically high cortisol can present as hypothyroidism. Okay. Another way that chronically high cortisol impacts your weight loss is it can lead to insulin resistance. So chronically high cortisol can lead to high blood sugar. Okay. That's a pretty direct correlation. And over time, this can lead to insulin resistance. This is where your cells are going to become less responsive to the insulin in your body, which is going to force your body to produce more and more insulin to keep blood sugar levels stable. That's what insulin resistance is, okay? Insulin resistance can increase your fat storage, particularly around the middle, right? But it can also make it harder for our body to use glucose efficiently for energy, which is going to slow down your metabolism even more. So because high cortisol can increase blood sugar, it can also lead to more cravings for high sugar, high fat foods, like more snack foods, more fast foods, that kind of thing, which is also going to increase the likelihood of overeating, right, during stressful situations. So it's kind of this cycle that is hard to break. So an example of this might be maybe you have a really high stress job, high stress life, and you come home from work and you start reaching for snacks after a stressful work day, or maybe some family drama, or it's at night and the kids go to bed and all you want is the ice cream. This can all be related to your stress levels, your blood sugar. It's all a deeper process that's going on here. It's not just about like, oh, I don't have the willpower to not have the snacks, okay? Another way, muscle breakdown. Chronically high cortisol can lead to catabolism, which is when our body breaks down muscle tissue to release amino acids into the bloodstream that they can use for energy. Okay. And that muscle mass is so important for our metabolism. One reason, muscle tissue burns more calories than fat tissue, even at rest. So when you lose that muscle, you are going to slow down your metabolism a little bit. Okay. And you're going to slow down your body's ability to effectively burn calories, which is going to affect your weight loss. Okay. The fourth way that high cortisol is going to impact your weight loss negatively is it is going to lead to increased fat storage over time. So chronically high cortisol is going to promote more visceral fat storage. So visceral fat is that fat that's around the internal organs. Okay, subcutaneous fat is the fat that's right under the skin, and then visceral fat is kind of inside, deeper inside around your organs in your abdomen area. Okay. Visceral fat is going to contribute to more inflammation. It's going to alter your metabolism, and it's going to increase your risk of diseases down the road. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, and it's a lot harder to manage. Okay. If you guys have heard of the term menobelly, it's common. People call that, when you start carrying more weight around your middle when you're going through menopause, people call that a menobelly. And it's just stubborn fat that kind of accumulates right there around your midsection. Because as we go through menopause and perimenopause, we are losing out on those sex hormones that we have when you're younger, right? Your cortisol, your progesterone, those are going to go down over time, your testosterone too. And it's going to be harder for our bodies to manage stress and keep cortisol levels in that healthy range. And this can lead to a shift in where we hold our body fat. Okay. And higher stress levels is going to lead to more of that accumulation of belly fat for the reasons I just mentioned, the insulin resistance, that kind of thing. Okay. So let's talk about why this is harder in perimenopause. I just touched on it a little bit, but I want to dive a little deeper here into these hormone fluctuations that are happening during perimenopause and why it's harder for our bodies to keep healthy cortisol levels. So we've got our sex hormones, right? Estrogen and progesterone mainly, we're going to talk about. And as we enter perimenopause, which generally happens usually in our low to mid 40s, it can happen earlier if you've got even more stress in your life, or if you went through certain situations that for some reason caused you to go into early perimenopause. But when you enter perimenopause, these levels of estrogen and progesterone are going to start fluctuating and then over time begin to decline. For most of us, progesterone is going to decline first, and then estrogen is going to decline after that, okay? And these two hormones are super important in maintaining your metabolism, maintaining your healthy fat distribution, and keeping your muscle mass. So let's talk about estrogen first. So estrogen specifically is going to help regulate that fat storage, kind of where you store your body fat, and it's going to help with insulin sensitivity, like we talked about just a minute ago. So when estrogen levels drop, your body is more likely to store that fat, particularly around your middle. Okay. So as your estrogen levels come down again, which is going to be for most of us like mid to late 40s by that point. And this is going to lead to, a redistribution of that fat from like your hips and thighs or wherever you were storing it before, more to your belly. Okay. Now let's talk about progesterone. As progesterone goes down, this is going to lead to more water retention and bloating. A lot of us talk about that, especially in the early stages of perimenopause. So it can feel like you're gaining weight, even if you're not gaining a lot of fat. You're not gaining a lot of fat because you are super bloated. Maybe your stomach is distended. You've got more water retention going on. And that's more a result of the dropping of progesterone. Okay. So as these hormones change, it makes it even harder to lose weight. So it's like this compounding effect with the high cortisol that feels like a perfect storm, right? And compound that with just more increased life stress during perimenopause. We're a little bit older, our kids are older, a lot of us are working, raising kids, maybe caring for, older parents, maybe we're managing household responsibilities. There's just a lot of stress that we have at this stage of our life that we probably didn't have when we were 25 and we didn't have as many responsibilities, right? So you're going to have that emotional toll of all those stresses, and that could lead to more stress eating, right? People tend to overeat, make poor food choices, have more cravings, and all these things are making weight loss harder when we're in perimenopause. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. So let's talk about this. So stress weight gain cycle, okay? So step one, you're super stressed, so your cortisol levels rise, okay? After that, step two, high cortisol is going to increase that fat storage, especially around your belly. It's going to slow your metabolism for all the reasons we mentioned before, okay? Step three, so you're like a little stressed about this, right? You've got that fat storage, like, what am I going to do? That leads to more stress. So you try to diet more, exercise more. But since your body is in this stress, fight or flight mode, it's not going to be as effective as it used to be, right? So what happens next? You become frustrated, you become feeling discouraged and hopeless, which leads to even more stress, right? Which is going to raise cortisol even more, making it even harder to lose weight. And this cycle continues until your weight loss and your stress levels just kind of feel unmanageable, right? And over time, chronically elevated cortisol, it doesn't just affect your weight. It's also going to lead to sleep issues, mood swings, anxiety, a weakened immune system, lower bone density, so many other things that it's really, really important, you guys, that we don't get stuck in this cortisol-driven cycle, okay? Hopefully you understand that your weight loss, it's not just about willpower. It's not just about, oh, you got to try harder, you got to do better, you got to eat less, you got to move more. It's not about that. It is partially, of course, but that's not the whole story. Your body's reacting to these internal hormonal changes and these external stresses and pressure. And so you have to focus on addressing those root causes for long-term lasting weight loss, okay? It is 100% possible to break this cycle and effectively lose weight during perimenopause. You just have to focus on the stress management, the recovery, and the hormone balance, okay? Ignoring this stuff and only focusing on your calories, your exercise, is not going to give you the results that it might have when you were younger, okay? This is exactly why we do things the way we do in my coaching program. And this is exactly what many younger coaches just don't understand. But my team, we get it because we have lived it, and it is really hard to grasp this kind of stuff if you haven't been through it yourself, okay? So let's go over what you really want to know is how to break this cycle, how to manage cortisol for weight loss, okay? There are, let's see, how many things do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 little ideas here, okay? Number 1, lifestyle changes. Now, I know that you can't, for most of us, quit your job or get out of these very stressful situations. I get that. That's not totally feasible, right? But there are things you can do. Maybe you are living on coffee and caffeine, and maybe you can reduce your caffeine to lower those stress levels. Maybe you can focus on getting 30 more minutes of sleep, going to bed a little bit earlier. Maybe you can incorporate mindfulness activities like yoga, some meditation, some walks outside in the sun, grounding in the morning where you walk on grass or soil barefoot for a few minutes. These things that you can add to your lifestyle do truly play a role in reducing cortisol. Super, super important. Another one, stress management. And so really focusing on managing those stress levels. Like I said a minute ago, you can't sometimes cut these out of your life, but you can navigate them and mitigate them with things, with certain self-care activities, like kind of like I just mentioned before, restorative yoga, meditation, deep breathing, but really focusing on yourself, right? One of the habits we have our clients do is doing something just for them for 10 to 15 minutes every single day. That can be doing a hobby. That can be snuggling or walking your pet. That can be reading a book. That can be taking a bath. Whatever it is, we just put so many hats on in our lives where we're taking care of everyone else, right? If you can focus on remembering yourself, prioritizing yourself, and doing something every day that's just for you, it truly can help manage those stress levels in your life and help you feel more balanced. Nutrition, of course, is very, very important. Stabilizing blood sugar through balanced meals throughout the day. Eating your carbs spaced evenly throughout the day. If that's something that might help you. I say if because everybody's different, so I don't want to throw out too many blanket nutrition statements that will help with cortisol levels. But it is shown that cortisol or carbs are very important for healthy cortisol levels. So going keto when you have high cortisol might not be the best idea. Okay. Cutting calories and carbs super low is going to negatively affect healthy cortisol levels. Okay. So keeping balanced meals throughout the day, an appropriate amount of nutrients and calories and protein for your goals is what you need to do. All right. For weight loss and perimenopause. Now let's talk about exercise. Guys, over-exercising can raise cortisol levels and keep them high, and the wrong type of exercise can do that as well. If you are doing a lot of circuit training where you're working your cardio bursts into your lifting, that's going to increase cortisol levels. Now, let me kind of back up here. An increase in cortisol levels after a workout is not a bad thing. That is totally normal. It is when combined with your lifestyle and lack of recovery, if cortisol levels aren't coming back down, that's the problem, okay? And so people who have very high stress lifestyles and also do this style of workout every single day, that's where they run into chronically high cortisol levels, okay? But changing that up, focusing more on strength training, daily movement like walking, and moderate amounts of cardio as needed is the way to approach this, all right? And let's talk about mindset, because mindset is huge, you guys. So our self-talk, our just how we view the world is really going to affect your cortisol levels and your overall stress. One tip here is to start a gratitude practice. Maybe in your phone, you write 3 things you're grateful for every day. Sounds so simple, and truly it is. So I hope you all do this. But focusing on the good will help you see more of the good. And it becomes easier to find the good in every situation and realize that everything happens for you, not to you. It's these little mindset shifts that go a long way in really helping us manage just our overall day-to-day stress. Guys, in my journey, when I gained all that weight, I had really, really, really high cortisol levels. Let's talk really quick about how to test cortisol levels. Probably should have said this in the beginning, but you can test it in blood, urine, saliva. So if you do a blood test, like a normal, blood test through a doctor or something, it's going to tell you your cortisol levels right there in your blood at that moment, which is fine. It's a good starting point. If you're already getting labs done, you might as well do it and look at it. But it's going to be better. My favorite way to do this is to do a 4-point diurnal cortisol test. If you want the link, I usually do it through, what's the I can't remember the company. If you want the test, just shoot me a message on social media. I can get that link to you. If you just Google 4-point diurnal cortisol test, or saliva test, you'll probably see it. Oh, ZRT Labs. And I just get it online. And what you're going to do is you're going to spit into a vial or a test tube 4 different times throughout the day. And you ship that off and mail it to them, and they'll email you back a report, and they'll show you where healthy cortisol levels are, where yours are. You can see if it's higher at certain times of the day. You can see if it's low or if it's in that healthy range. Mine were very, very high all throughout the day. And if you've seen pictures of me when I was gaining that weight, I had a very round face. And that is super common with high cortisol levels. Very, very puffy cheeks, very round around your jawline, kind of just a circular face, right? And I had to incorporate a lot of these things. I completely cut out cardio for 9 months and focused only on walking. I'm not a huge cardio fan, so that wasn't that super hard for me, but it was a change. It was definitely a change. And it worked, guys. I was able to lose the weight, and I realized that there is a gentler approach to weight loss that is more effective and helps you feel even better and helps you manage your nutrition, your health better than just pounding yourself with stress. Early morning workouts, high intensity cardio. There's a better way to do this. Okay. And we can help you guys with that. So if you're interested in more information on how we help clients with this same kind of stuff, go ahead and just shoot me a message on social media. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. If you did, please share it to your stories. I'm back after a little bit of a break, and I'd love to kind of just get this, get the podcast going back off with a bang. So yeah, I'd love any reviews you want to share. Sharing on your stories is awesome. Also, just shoot me a message if you want to chat about this in more detail, and I'd be happy to. But that's what I got for you guys today. I will talk to you guys next week.